Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and on this semi-holiday episode, I'm going to be showing you how to take this and turn it into this. Some of you will recognize this right off the bat. It is the Offline Dino from the Chrome browser. What you don't realize is that it's also going to be a wall-mounted smart light, which lets us know if we have connectivity to certain online services, and a secret gift that I'm making for my wife. So let's get started, because we don't have much time before Santa's sleigh. Alright, so I went out online and found this needle point to give me the nice pixelated version of the dino and to break it into perfect squares. Took that, edited it down to just the basics, and then flipped it, since I'm planning on drawing on the back of the piece, the side that is towards the wall. We're going to use that as our template here, and I'm going to transfer it over to the piece of wood, which is a 2x2. It is 22 pixels tall by 20 pixels wide. Knowing that, I came out with a rough estimate that with only losing a little bit of material on either side, I could go with a pixel, 1 inch by 1 inch. So now we're gonna go and draw the grid, then mark it out so that way we know where we need to cut. Alright guys, so now that we're down in the garage to cut our material, we've got it all marked out, ready to go. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a set of clamps, something to use as a saw guide if you want to be super clean. You can freehand it, use this with these clamps, or if you have a professional saw guide, you can go with that. As for the tools, the minimum required tools is some sort of saw. You can use a handsaw. I'm going with a jigsaw today. That's going to let me get in real close and get some nice cuts to define those small pixels on our art. A set of fine-tooth saw blades for whatever saw you're using. The higher the count, the less likely it is to mess up our plywood material. And then you have a drill for the eye, so that way you can drop the saw into that drill hole. You want to size your drill bit to allow for you to put the saw through that and rotate the blade without touching the material, and that gives you the most flexibility. As for optional things, you can use a circular saw to remove large portions where you're going to be cutting pretty much all the way through the material. Since it has a curved blade, you can't get close enough to the material to do pixel intersections. It's just not going to handle it. You're not going to get close enough. So you need to use either a handsaw, or ideally you want to use a jigsaw for this. And as always, we've got our eye and ear protection. And then I'm going to be wearing my COVID mask just to keep dust particles out of my mouth. Don't skip this. There's so many times that I was like, oh, I'll make a quick cut real fast, and then I end up getting a wood chip in my eye. It's not good. Don't do it. Always wear your safety protection. All right, so let's get this set up, and I'll take you through all the cuts.
Shut up and sit down.
Okay guys, so one of the things you're probably wondering is how do you get a cut that's like this? As you can see here, I have the foot and I need to cut that out. So what I do is I actually make the 2 cuts that I need, and then that cut that needs to connect the ends, I cut from the opposite corner over to that corner so it notches it. Now I have a triangle that I can move my blade in, and then I bring it as close as possible and cut back to the other side, and then that releases more space. And then I kind of just bring it across until it hones the edge. I'll do that right now to show you what I'm doing. We're gonna make our 2 cuts. And what you want to do to make sure you don't gouge your edge there is stop about blade width away from the end. And you kind of slow down your cut. So we have our 2 cuts. Now what I'm going to do is cut from this corner to this corner. And you're going to start slow with the blade. So now I've got all this extra room here to move the blade in as close as possible. Again, starting slow and aiming towards my other corner here. So I'm going to be basically coming across here. So now you can see I've got an even shallower angle there. Now I can basically bring it in, and I'm still going to be aiming at that corner. And then I'm going to move back this way and just keep kind of honing it in. Since these have, I'm going to lock this so that way I can't turn it on. But basically, these teeth here allow you a little bit of play. That's hence why it's called a jigsaw. It allows you to kind of turn into the different areas. You can use that to your advantage and actually get rid of a little bit more material. You bite in here and then kind of turn it so it doesn't cross your line. All right, so now we're right on that line, and now I'm gonna just go back, and this is the final cleaning cut. Gets rid of that last little bit. There we go. So now we've got our foot exposed. I went too far. I need to be marking this better. So if you do find that you've accidentally gone too far up your cut, as long as you still have structural integrity, we can make up for that later on by using wood putty, because this whole thing's going to be painted. If you're going for the natural look, you're kind of screwed, but what you're going to want to do is kind of put a mark across each of these, because I have it X'd and I'm not able to see it before it's too late. So if for some reason you make a cut and it goes too far through the material and ends up becoming a structural problem, what you're going to want to do is wood glue, put that in there, and that'll help make that a super tight bond. Wood glue is amazing. And then you can also brace it with something behind it, because again, we're going to be putting this off of the wall and using this to push it away from the wall anyways. Make sure to move your clamps so that way they don't get hit. Also, it's better to have one clamp that is, here, let me show you. So off here, I have one clamp, and then I have the other clamp, and I'm working out here. This gives you a fulcrum on this point, so the piece wants to do this, and this clamp keeps it from doing that. It's always good to have More clamps than less clamps. As you can see, starting to get that dinosaur shape. The reason why I left this the way it is, I overcut, and that's going to be one of those ones where I'm worried about structural integrity. So I think I'll attack that last. Basically, I'm going to do this cut last because again, it's going to make this part fragile. I don't want it to break off. It's going to be harder to take care of, but we're going to address how we do the eye. Okay, so we're going to do something similar to what we did in this area here. We're going to just plunge this down in, and as you can see, I can rotate this. And I'm going to get out to my corners and kind of try to cut. So we're gonna just again, stopping short. As I'm cutting a little bit more of the material because get this pretty much parallel to the line. All right, so that's parallel to the line. And now I'm going to cut from here over, again, creating more space so we can start making that other cut. And then we're going to clean up this edge a little bit. Right, so now we have our first edge pretty much done. Might need a little bit of cleaning, but you don't have to worry about getting it perfect because we can go back with a file and get it like nice and smooth. Now what we're going to do is kind of cut this way to try to get this side open. So we get as close to this side as I can without binding the saw. Yeah, that's close enough. A little rounded, but again, you can use a file later on to get that nice and super flat. So now, get the last cut here to get the arm. All right, so that's clear. I'm going to take it slow with these cuts again because I don't want to strain this. All right. So it's more of a diagonal and you try to cut in. It gives you more room, so you have to make less cuts. It gets that so you can put the blade more in line with the final cut. So now we have our final shape. And as you can see, I had a little bit of tearing here. That is usually caused by pushing the blade too fast. We can address that later on with, again, wood putty. All right, so for this last part, we're going to be taking a look at fixing up these issues here and here. What you're going to need is some parchment paper, or tape, and wood glue. The wood glue is going to be filling in those spots. The parchment paper is going to keep it from getting everywhere. Just need a little bit. Put the parchment paper underneath. And we're going to squeeze it. Keep wiping this in here, trying to get as much in there as possible. Clean this edge up just a little bit and kind of put that down right there. And so that will give us structural integrity. Now just let that set and we'll come back and get this sticker off and start doing touch-ups on this, readying it for paint. What we're gonna do here is touch these up with some sandpaper, and then we'll put in some wood filler to help get rid of any of these gouges, and we're gonna round the edges. You can use a sanding block, start off with 120 grit, and then you work your way down from there, and kind of just go do a once over to kind of even out all your seams. All right, let's get to it. And as always, put on your safety gear. So I accidentally forgot to hit record on the camera. Basically what we just did was went through and sanded all of this down. We took off all the edges, all the points, all the seams were cleaned up. And then I went back through with color changing wood filler and filled in all the little gaps that I have. Again, you can use your fingers or you can put on some gloves, and basically if you want it distressed you can kind of skip this step, but if you are using it, smear it on a little bit thicker than what you think you need, because you're just going to go back through with the sander again on high grit and it will just smooth right out. So we're going to wait for this to cure, then we're going to come back in with the sander again and just smooth that down. It'll make it look a lot nicer. You want to basically get rid of it back down to the wood, so it just leaves the stuff that's supposed to be in the gaps. Now we will get that damp rag and wipe this down real quick, just to make sure that there is no particulate on there. Then we're going to prime it. We're using Modern Masters Metal Effects. I went with copper because I like that kind of blue-green hue that you get off of it. Basically, it's going to be a three-step process. We prime, we paint, and then we use the activator, which is a corrosive substance which helps age and add the patina. All right guys, so as you can see, the patina has come out quite nicely. I'm pretty satisfied with the results here. So now that that's done, I'm gonna let this cure fully overnight. Since it's a little colder, it might take longer for this to set. In the meantime, we can go upstairs and start working on the electronics side of the project.